It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon in the heart of Mumbai, but inside the grand hall of the Imperial Plate, a restaurant that catered exclusively to billionaires, celebrities, and the social elite, everything sparkled. Golden chandeliers hummed low above crystal wine glasses. Violins whispered background music, and the scent of saffron-infused risotto drifted to the air like royalty. A man entered, dressed in an old, wrinkled kurta pajama. His sandals were worn thin, the kind you'd expect from someone who barely had enough for his next meal. His hair, streaked with gray and untamed, framed a weathered face with tired eyes and a calm demeanor. No one looked up. Why would they? But one waiter did, a young man named Raghav. He was ambitious, sharp, and desperate to be noticed by the wealthy diners. Seeing the old man take a seat at an unassigned table, Raghav stormed over, lips curled in disdain. "This place isn't for beggars," he sneered. "Get out before I call security." The old man didn't flinch. He simply looked up, eyes deep and knowing, and whispered, "I'm here for lunch, like everyone else." Raghav laughed mockingly. "Unless you're here to wash dishes, you're wasting everyone's time." The insult echoed slightly in the quiet elegance of the dining room. A few nearby guests turned their heads, mildly curious, but most went back to their conversations and expensive wine, ignoring the altercation like they often did with anything that didn't directly affect their wallets. Raghav stood tall, chest puffed, as if he had just done something heroic. The old man didn't argue. He just sat there, calmly folding his hands in his lap, as though waiting for the next move in a predictable game. "I'll ask you one last time," Raghav said, stepping closer. "Leave. We don't serve people like you." The old man tilted his head slightly. "What kind of people would that be, son?" "People who look like you. Poor, dirty, lost." The man didn't blink. His voice was still gentle. "You see a beggar, but looks can be deceiving." "Not here, they're not," Raghav snapped. "This is the Imperial Plate. You need a reservation 3 weeks in advance just to breathe the air in here. And you," he looked the man up and down, "look like you wandered in from the back alley." Without another word, Raghav turned his back and waved toward the maitre d', signaling for security. 2 well-built guards in tailored black suits approached. One of them whispered, "Sir, we'll need you to leave. Don't make a scene." The old man stood slowly, his expression unreadable. As he turned, he handed the maitre d' a sleek black card. "Please give this to your owner." The maitre d' glanced down at the card and froze. Raghav, who hadn't noticed, barked, "Come on! Throw him out. What are you waiting for?" But the maitre d' didn't move. His hands trembled as he looked from the card to the man, and then back again. "Sir, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I had no idea." Raghav scoffed. "What are you doing? It's just some old—" "Quiet," the maitre d' snapped. "Do you even know who this is?" Raghav blinked. "Yeah, some homeless." "That's Mukesh Ambani." The entire restaurant went silent. Someone gasped. Glass clinked. Chairs scraped as people turned to look properly at the man who had just been insulted. Raghav's face went pale. "What? That's not possible. Ambani, he's—" The old man smiled slightly. "Rich? Powerful? Dressed in a suit with 10 bodyguards and a Rolls-Royce outside? Sometimes. I don't feel like being all that. Sometimes I like to come alone, dressed like a common man, to see how the world really treats people." He paused. "Today I learned something." Raghav stammered. I didn't know. I swear." "You saw what you wanted to see. That says more about you than me," Ambani said, his voice calm but piercing. Raghav's mouth opened to say something, anything, but words failed him. He was staring into the eyes of a man whose wealth could buy this restaurant 1,000 times over, a man he had just called a beggar. The maitre d' stepped back, nervously straightening his jacket. "Mr. Ambani, please. Allow me to escort you to our finest table. You'll have privacy. And your meal is on the house, of course." Mukesh Ambani didn't move. He simply stood there, eyes still fixed on Raghav. "No," he said softly. "I'd like to be served by him." The room stiffened again. Raghav looked up, stunned. "Me?" "Yes," Ambani said, "since you were so eager to speak for the restaurant. Let's see how well you actually serve. The maitre d' nodded frantically, grabbing Raghav by the arm and dragging him aside. You fool! Do you know what you've done? If he complains, we'll all be fired. You'll be lucky if you work in a tea stall after this. Raghav's palms began to sweat. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Just do as he says. The maitre d' hissed. Raghav returned to Ambani's table, like a prisoner on death row. Yes, sir, may I get you something to drink? Ambani sat calmly, his hands folded on the white linen tablecloth. Water to start, but not bottled. Tap. Raghav blinked. Tap, sir? Are you sure? Yes. That's what you would have served me if I hadn't been who I am, right? Shaking, Raghav disappeared into the kitchen and came back with a glass. He placed it carefully on the table, as if it might explode. Ambani picked it up, sipped, and set it down without a word. For the next hour, Raghav served Ambani. He took his order, fetched his food, poured his water. The once cocky waiter was now as quiet as a shadow, jumping at every command. But Ambani never raised his voice. He never insulted him. In fact, he was polite, disarmingly so, and that somehow made it worse. By the time dessert arrived, the tension in the restaurant was thick enough to cut. Diners whispered behind hands. Managers peeked out from the kitchen. Everyone watched. When the check came, Ambani pushed aside. I'll be paying more than the meal is worth, but not in money. He turned to Raghav. Tell me something. Why do you work here? Raghav cleared his throat. To earn. To grow. I want to be something in life. And what does something mean to you? Important. Respected. Successful. Ambani nodded slowly. Then let me give you your first real lesson in success. Raghav stood still. Ambani's voice dropped slightly, calm but commanding. Never judge people by their appearance. I came here dressed like this to remind myself of the world beyond limousines, to stay grounded. And now, because of you, I've seen just how far people will go to feel superior. He stood. Your ambition is not the problem, he said, but your pride is. And with that, he walked out, no guards, no fanfare, just the old man in wrinkled clothes. The maitre d' ran after him. Mr. Ambani, please, let us make this right. But Ambani raised a hand. You'll hear from me. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and the room exhaled as if someone had just removed a boulder from its chest. For a moment, no one moved. Then the murmurs began. Tables whispering, heads turning, speculation bouncing from ear to ear. Raghav stood frozen, sweat dripping down the back of his neck, his hands trembling. He didn't know whether to collapse or run. He had insulted Mukesh Ambani to his face. The maitre d' pulled him aside again. This time he was gentler, but his eyes were filled with dread. Raghav, listen to me. If Mr. Ambani decides to report this, we're finished. You especially. He could own this place by the end of the day and fire all of us before breakfast. I didn't know, Raghav whispered. But you assumed. The maitre d' shot back. And in this industry, assumptions are fatal. By the next morning, the story had spread like wildfire. Not in the news, not yet, but among the business elite of Mumbai. Word of mouth moved faster than any headline. The city's most powerful people were talking. Mukesh Ambani was insulted at the imperial plate by a waiter who mistook him for a beggar. At Ambani's headquarters, the Reliance boardroom was already buzzing. Sir, shall we prepare a public statement? No, Ambani said. I'm not interested in public shaming, but I am interested in transformation. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Find out everything about that boy, his background, his struggles, his education, and then offer him a choice. That evening, Raghav got home to his tiny flat in a rundown building near Kurla. His mother was sitting on the floor, peeling onions for dinner. His younger sister was doing homework by the flickering tube light. He didn't tell them anything. He couldn't. That night, he barely slept. The next morning, when he reported to work, the maitre d' handed him a sealed envelope. It's for you. Hand-delivered. Raghav's hand shook as he opened it. Inside was a short, handwritten letter. Raghav, you made a mistake. We all do. But what matters is what we do next. I'd like to offer you a position, not in my restaurant, but in my office. Come to this address tomorrow at 11 a.m. sharp. Wear what makes you feel confident. M.A. Raghav read the note 3 times. It made no sense. Was it real? A prank? Some twisted punishment? But it wasn't. The next morning, Raghav wore his best clothes, a modest blue shirt, freshly ironed, tucked into black trousers. His shoes, though worn, were polished until they shone. He arrived at the towering Reliance Industries building 30 minutes early, his stomach twisted in knots. At the front desk, he hesitantly gave his name. The receptionist looked up and smiled politely. You're expected. A security escort appeared within seconds and guided him through polished glass hallways, up elevators that whispered luxury, and into a private executive lounge. No one else was there. A single white leather chair faced a giant glass wall with a view over Mumbai. Raghav sat stiffly, knees together, heart racing. Then the door opened. Mukesh Ambani walked in, this time dressed in a crisp navy suit, his posture calm, his presence undeniable. Good morning, he said. Raghav jumped his feet. Sir, Sit, Ambani said with a wave of his hand. I didn't bring you here to embarrass you. Raghav sat back down slowly, shoulders tense. Ambani took the opposite seat, crossing one leg over the other. I wanted to see if he would show up. I wasn't sure if it was real. It is... Silence. Why am I here, sir? Raghav asked softly. Ambani looked him over with thoughtful eyes. Tell me your story. Raghav blinked. My story? Yes. Not your resume. Your story. Raghav swallowed. I grew up in Dombivli. My father died when I was 9. My mother started working in houses to feed us. I dropped out of college after the first year. Couldn't afford it, so I started waiting tables. This job at the Imperial Plate was my chance to get close to powerful people. Maybe pick up something. Learn. Rise. Ambani listened without interruption. And what did you learn? He finally asked. That people respect power, Raghav said bitterly. They respect appearance, status, not effort, not honesty. And now, Ambani pressed. Raghav looked away. Now, I've learned people also remember your worst moment forever. Ambani smiled faintly. Not everyone. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Here's what I'm offering you. A 2-year training internship under one of my top executives. You'll learn business, leadership, operations, everything you need to build something of your own. After that, if you prove yourself, I'll help you start your first venture. But only if you want to work for it. Raghav stared at the folder as if it might catch fire. Why me? Because I don't invest in resumes, Ambani replied. I invest in people. People with fire and failure. You have both. Tears welled up in Raghav's eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes. I will. Ambani stood. Good. You start Monday. 5 years later, the grand ballroom of the Imperial Plate buzzed once again, but this time for a different reason. The restaurant had been completely reserved for a single guest. Raghav Kapoor, now the 31-year-old founder and CEO of Kapoor Technologies, one of India's fastest-growing AI startups. Dressed in a sharp tailored suit, he stood near the same table where he had once been scolded, laughed at, and broken. A waiter, nervous and young, approached him with a tray, trembling slightly. Raghav smiled warmly. Relax. You're doing great. The boy looked up in shock, realizing who he was serving. Tea, thank you, sir. Raghav sat down and poured water into his own glass. Tap,